All right. Hey, we're here with game time with Doc and Lurch. We're logging in just a little bit early just so that we can get our sound check and everything out of the way before we get started. So bear in mind, we show doesn't actually start for about another 5, 6 minutes. Let's see here. Bring up my monitor website so I can check that out and refresh that. Okay, let's see. It's thinking, okay, we're going to do sound check. Check one, two, check one, two. 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 Say something, Lurch. Two.
Ayo,
Say something, Lurch.
testing test. Ayo,
Say something, Lurch.
testing test. Ayo,
Say something, Lurch.
testing test.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, we've got our sound going, so now let me go ahead and get a pop out window of our chat so that we can get that going as our other little maintenance thing so that we can see when you lovely people come in. Larger. Okay. All right. Um, for those who don't know, we're still a little bit before the actual start of the show, but I'll get what the hell happened there. Oh, my screen went black there for a second.
That's not good.
My backup screen. Anyway, for those who don't know, we are Doc and Lurch. We're part of Eclectic Endeavors, the group that brings you the Gaming Arts Media Entertainment Expo, which is one of the gaming conventions here in town, as well as the Picnic at the End of the Universe and Game Night at Holdfast Brewing Company, among other things we've done throughout the years. This year's game will be the last game. And it's game 12, although as I've said before, if it wasn't for COVID, it would be game 14, but we skipped 2 years for COVID. Our dates are October 14th, 15th, and 16th, and because it is the last year of game, we're not looking to make a surplus here. We're looking to just break even, which means you can get in for the entire weekend for only $10 a piece. That's an amazing price for a weekend full of fun. Really, we're just trying to cover all our costs, and that's it. In the past, we've used any excess to help with other nerdy endeavors like after school clubs, scholarships to the nerdy arts, things of that nature. This year, we're going to have as much of our normal build a fair as possible, but we're only running what we have people to run things for. So if there's a favorite part of the convention and you've not seen an announcement that we're going to be including that part this year, it may be because we don't have anybody to run it, but we are still taking volunteers to add to what we're going to do. Just as for instance, we do not have a costume contest this year so far, or an art show because we do not have somebody to run either one of those. However, I will be running panels this year as director of panels, in addition to my normal cross promotions duties. And Lurch is co-chairman this year, in addition to his director of electronic gaming duties. Greg Pullman, who was one of our anchors here for a little while, and does still run the Holdfast Brewing Company event every month, is director of tabletop gaming, and him and John McDonald will still be running the tabletop area for you to play board, card, and role playing games. So that'll be fully in effect. We will have vendors there as normal. It'll be vendors that you've seen there in the past. In fact, we're going to actually even prioritize our vendors by the ones that have been vending with us on good standing the longest. So you'll see some of your favorite vendors there as well. And a few clubs will also have booths. And then we will have, like I said, we will have panels. We will have electronic gaming. Um, and then they'll be the browsing around and just gaming with the tabletop game, which is the lion's share of what goes on at game. If you want to see anything more than that, you're going to kind of want to make sure you jump on Hub. I believe we'll still have the paint and take workshops because Michelle and John will be there still to run those. So those should be in the works. Um, and other than that, if you join Eclectic Endeavors on Facebook, you could keep in mind of when we're going to have meetings. And our meetings are for the most part open to the public, so you can come in, see what we're doing, and volunteer to help us out. Uh, and some of our meetings are virtual meetings for the convenience of everybody, and some of them are live, usually over at the Creamery Arts Center, because we are part of the Springfield Regional Art Council, and that is their headquarters building. We are under that umbrella of their 501c3, so we are completely not for profit. None of us get paid. In fact, a lot of us invest a little bit of our own time and money into making sure this is the best event you can possibly enjoy. Um, so, and speaking of local events, at the end of this month, VisionCon is going on here in town. So if you want to get into the convention thing early before game gets started, you might want to start looking into getting your tickets for VisionCon because they are at the end of the month here, and they're going to have a lot of fun there. They're going to have a esports tournament of Super Smash Brothers this year too. It's one of their new announcements. So for the first time, they're going to have real electronic gaming at VisionCon. So give it a chance to go out there and play some Super Smash Brothers tournament. Um, anyway, it is now after 8 o'clock. We're going to actually get started in the actual show. Um, if you ever have any comments, suggestions, or anything for what you want to see on the show, you can come in and talk to us during the show right here in chat. You can also hit exclamation Discord in the channel and get a link to jump into my Discord, and you can come try to talk to us on Discord as well if you want to participate in the overall conversation. Or you can send us messages. Lurchland at Facebook will be Lurch, and I'm GamerSeuss at AOL.com. Or just look for Clyde Starr on Facebook, although most people who know me know I hate going by the name Clyde. It's Facebook's dang thing about not wanting to take my nickname. It took Lurchland, though, so who knows?
Well, okay, so it wouldn't let me use Lurchland as a profile, but it let me make Lurchland as a like page for
uh,
events. And so my actual login is and everything. My main profile is still Philip, and then Lurchland is like a performer page. Like
mm, yeah,
it's yeah,
stage name kind of
it's
thing.
weird like that. I tried to do it as an actual profile like I did with my main profile, but it wouldn't let me do it. I even tried
Mm.
to change my name on mine, and it wouldn't let me do it.
I might have to do that. Set myself up a Gamer Seuss page then at some point because
Yeah,
I hate being called Clyde, and everybody pretty much knows it. There's only a few people that get away with it, and not get their head bitten off for it. There's few people I respect enough that I don't worry about them calling me Clyde, but for the most part, I correct everybody and say Doc, uh, or Gamer. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Okay, first thing we do need to announce is this week and next week, couple weeks, there will not be a Superman and Lois. We didn't realize that last week when we said we'd be talking about it this week, but they're taking their mid-season break, and we didn't realize because
this break was caused by filming issues because of a COVID breakout
mm,
everywhere among the filming people,
uh,
and so that's
yeah,
why they have this forced break.
so they're going to do a break in the next episode of Superman and Lois, and coincidentally Naomi are both going to be on the 27th. Now, that did not put a break in the Flash, so at least we still get the Flash right now. And so we will be doing our overview of the Flash and the new Moon Knight episode this week. Uh, and we will be talking a little bit about Morbius. Uh, and then we're going to just go ahead and now jump into our regular content. As usual, the first topic of the night is Lurches, and it has to do with Kingdom Hearts 4.
Yeah, so surprising everybody. Kingdom Hearts has been announced, or has announced, or well, Square Enix has announced a sequel to Kingdom Hearts 3 called Kingdom Hearts 4. And this one, I'm not an expert in Kingdom Hearts. I started the first one and I never finished it. But Kingdom Hearts 4, the kind of the big thing is people thought that the story was wrapped up by the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. At least that's what I'm told by Kingdom Hearts fans that have played them all. That they thought that it ended, the story was concluded.
And it's a popular franchise.
This game seems to be picking up, evidently, right after the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. And they're using Unreal Engine. They said they're actually working with Unreal Engine 5.
More and more games are going to Unreal.
Yeah. And I gotta say, like, the visuals on this for a Kingdom Hearts game looks pretty good. You know, they're still not great, but this is an early in development situation, you know? So they got many years to go.
Kill the man outside.
I just kind of wanted to bring this up. This was a game that was recently listed. So I don't know if you know this, but a while back there was a leak from Nvidia about a bunch of games, and at first people thought that they were just kind of just wrong, and this being one of the most outlandish ones, that ended up being true. They also announced another like Kingdom Hearts like spin-off game called Missing Link, but that one is not building up as much attention. So I don't think the fan base cares as much about that one as they care about the Kingdom Hearts 4. Some people are not pointing out is how his feet are normal size instead of giants, wonky size. But that could just be because of the world that he's in. Like whenever he's in the Little Mermaid's world, he has a fin instead of feet. So it could just be part of that. I don't know. The gameplay footage looks really good. It showed him like leaping around and like latching on to the monster with his keychain, doing some sort of like a chain pull maneuver. Things like that. It looks. It's one of these things though. I'm watching it. And I was like, man, that looks cool. That looks great. But it's probably not going to be for me. Only because the Kingdom Hearts games are so like, from everyone I know, they get really complicated and confusing, and you kind of have to play all of them. And I think this is like the 16th game in the series, so there's a lot to catch up on. And I wasn't the first game didn't hold my attention all the way through. I got to a point where I thought I was near the end, and I was thankful to be finishing the game. And then some friends of mine told me I was at the halfway point, and I just uninstalled. But
Pretty
I think for
interesting.
those that are Kingdom Hearts fans, there's a lot of excitement drumming around this game. And for any Kingdom Hearts fans out there,
Yeah,
check a look. They put out like a 7-minute video, I think. Half of it is mostly about the Missing Link game, and the second half is about this fourth. They call it Kingdom Hearts 4, but I don't know why. With all the titles that they have in that franchise now. Doc, you there?
yeah, I'm here. I'm kind of going through the video to see some clips.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, because I was showing the video without sound. Okay, this is the more realistic
Yeah, they're going for a
stuff.
more realistic look on this one, at least for this part.
Ooh, I like that giant shadow creature.
Now, as I
Nice.
understand it, there's a video game inside of the Toy Story world called Verum Rex, and I guess this is him inside of the Verum Rex world. I'm not sure. It's I don't know enough Kingdom Hearts to
It
say
all links to Disney properties, so
Disney or Square Enix
yeah.
properties. The one thing that something that does me excited and is not announced officially, but since this one is going for a more, or at least at this point of what we see, a more real world looking kind of environment, that live action almost looking environment, that it might. Ooh, sorry. And also, there's like a small image in one of the shots that people think is indoor, and so there's theories out there that Star Wars is going to be a part of this game.
It is a Disney property now, so it is eligible.
And then also something to think about is Marvel is also a Disney property, and
Right?
there's a potential for it to show up in here as well.
Kind of like how they did with Space Jams and they touched all the DC properties. So you had the superhero worlds and stuff with the
Oh,
Space Jams.
I know what I forgot about that. I'm going to send you a link about Warner Brothers here in a little bit. For my last subject.
You
Um,
can add a fourth subject in.
yeah, yeah. So I'm going to keep this one short, and then my third one will be pretty short. But then I want to talk about Warner Brothers for a little bit because there's some big news about them. That's not video game specific. That's why I didn't think about it when I was putting my subjects together. But it is very much nerd culture related that I think you're definitely going to hear about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're always interested in that. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and move on to my first topic. And this is my Kickstarter recommendation for the week. And this is AR Kana, an augmented reality platform for tabletop role playing games. Uh, it is funded. They were looking for 50,000, and they're almost six times their goal. They've got 19 days, so you've got time to actually jump in on this one. Because I've told you I've been trying to pick ones with a little bit more time on them, so that you guys aren't looking at it at the last minute and not having time to actually get behind it. But it's an AR, which is augmented reality for those who don't know. Probably the most popular and well known augmented reality game out there is Pokemon Go,
Mm-hmm.
um, which allows you to like capture the Pokemon in real life using your phone as like a lens into the altered reality. Uh, well, this is going to allow you to kind of AR your Dungeons and Dragons game. And there's been a couple of different kind of AR tools that have come out. This looks like it's a pretty good one though. That'll be able to AR your dungeon onto the table on your that you're playing, and you can move your figures and stuff, but using the tablets and stuff to maneuver your characters throughout things, and even maybe the DM could come up with some cutscenes or something later on. It's going to be
Cool.
Android or iOS. You could build big. You can, possibly let the players zoom in on rooms when you're actually doing an encounter, so you can see in a lot clearer detail. I don't know what the miniature customization is going to be like yet, but it's still nice to see that it's got like basically Hero Forge, Reaper, and Dwarven Forge type virtual models. Reaper, Hero Forge, all of these look like they're from Dwarven Forge and all of that. So you're getting really good quality segments because you can actually buy these Dwarven Forge pieces in order to build the actual dungeon in your basement or whatever. But here you can do it virtually, so it doesn't take up a big old table in your room, and it's a lot easier to move because it's just on a digital file. But these are actual miniatures and actual pieces that you can use. Now, this means if it uses Hero Forge, which means you should be able to do some customizable files for your hero on the Hero Forge website and possibly upload that virtual file, just like you would download it for printing on a 3D printer. You should be able to input your custom miniature into the VR system, and that's what I'm assuming is going to be able to be a possibility. And of course, Hero Forge now does pre-made custom color miniatures, which means you can get them colorized, not just the grayscale. Um, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes forward. I mean, I've already done my Kickstarter for the year, but I am tempted. Uh, Pledge tiers for $30. You get the app, the starter asset set, the Heroes Forge starter minis, one of 6 digital terrain packs, the Reach for Digital Zombies and Skeletons set, and all unlocked stretch goals. Um, for $50, you get it. It's a bigger pack. $80 is even bigger pack. $150 gives you basically just about everything, and then the 250 gives you everything. Well, oh no, there's $1,000 pack. That one's going to give you even more. There's a few different terrain packs you can pick up. Those are basically all from Dwarven Forge. As it says, even the base pack gets you a choice of one of those. Uh, Reaper Digital Minis. And you start with the zombie set, but you can and skeleton set because you get the 5 zombies and the 5 skeletons because it's a 10 minis. Um, and then as you go along, you can get other sets. Um, the stretch goals. They're at that. So you get the weather FX unlocked and the environmental FX unlocked, and PC conversion is unlocked. Uh, all applicable Arcana features are ported so you can seamlessly cross-play with your friends on iOS and Android on your PC. So that's nice. The 250 is unlocked with interactive tiles. The next one will be the Spell FX, then the Monster Mayhem, which is going to give you some like big monster minis and stuff. Then the Sound and Music FX, and then there's a mystery stretch goal if they break 400,000, which they've got enough time to do it. Uh, Early access beta ships in summer 2022. Ships to all backers in fall winter 2022. And stretch goals, they say those might take a little longer. But since a lot of it is meet the party. You got Grant Anderson, the CEO. Donald Bland is uh, chief operations officer, and then Joe Manganiello is creative director. Now, people know him from like Magic Mike and stuff, but he's also a big time gamer who's played. He's got his basement totally converted into a gaming room, and he's actor, producer, writer, and he's played with the Critical Role people a few times. Trip Wood, he's in sales and marketing. He's from Paramount and EA. Kyle Newman, he's the director and writer. He's the strategic advisor. And Eric McIntyre, He's a game designer and a social media guy. So they've got a pretty good group of people together putting this out. The fact that Joe Manganiello is involved is the one that gets me pretty excited because he knows Dungeons and Dragons and he's been playing it for a while. And I mean, look at all of the different partners that they've got going into this. So I would definitely suggest this out if you want to be playing on a virtual platform with your friends and family. It'd be great because you know what you do is you sit around your table playing D&D with a tablet in front of you just to view your terrain and stuff. It saves a little bit of space on mapping and everything. Then you have your tablet to actually run this, and also you can swipe to another screen on your tablet to have your character sheet, or you could have your character sheet on your phone next to your tablet and play your game virtually, or like have it on two screens on your laptop, and a lot of seamless play because you don't have to worry about resetting up every combat because the DM could have most of it preset up, and all you have to do is drag and drop the player minis onto the individual maps when you're ready to get started. So it's taking AR to the inevitable place that AR needs to go in order to enhance our tabletop gaming experience. And as you can see, you could interact it with some of the VR goggle type tech. They got the Apple VR goggles there, and it looks like a version of Google Glasses, among other things that we'll be able to access for AR purposes. And it's the next step towards giving your holodeck type of experience that a lot of us gamers have been looking for. It was funded in 7 hours too, so this is one that people are pretty excited about. What do you think about that one there, Philip?
I think it looks pretty damn cool. Being able to see your tabletop RPG games in that kind of a visual medium. Um, I do think this is phase one of this growing technology. Where
Right.
it'll really become great is whenever they have it in like goggle form or something.
Well,
Because
it's looking to have goggle support.
by the time you're holding up a tablet to see everything, you're basically in a video game, holding a controller. Although this is the difference being here is that you're around a table together, playing a video game. The but
Well,
the thing that kind of worries me is the effort it takes to hold up the tablet for the whole time.
right.
Um, like in order to see
Well,
the video,
a lot of tablets have kickstands and stuff too.
I was gonna say I would imagine. I don't think I saw pictures with them using kickstands. I was gonna say I would imagine that a lot of it's gonna be done with some kind of a prop or stand that holds it in place for you, not being held in your hand like the pictures tend to show.
But this one does say it's actually being developed for use with AR glasses.
Yeah, but I don't
And
know. I don't think we have any AR glasses available to the public yet.
the Apple ones are still in development, I believe. And
Yeah,
the Google ones went back to development because there was a bunch of like um, concerns, like people videoing people without their consent and
though.
wearing them into movie theaters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
smart glasses or headsets.
but eventually the idea is going to be you're going to be able to use your finger to move stuff as a virtual cursor using these AR glasses and everything. And once
Yeah,
that kind of stuff is going on, man, we are going to be into the next generation, man. That's what I'm so looking forward to. It technology is just advancing faster and faster, and I'm just such a tech geek when it comes to that. I want this so bad. But I want it at the level like you said you want it, where you can just throw on the glasses and start moving your finger and move everything, and not have to hold up a tablet or have it on your laptop. Be able to walk around.
Even if you have to have like physical little tokens that the goggles need to see to know that what you're moving around would be good.
Right.
Um, but yeah, having something that allows you to just be able to see it without having to hold an object in your hand to do it.
Well, like, just think about it. If you were able to get to the point where you put it in the goggles, and then you and a group of friends were to go to play a D&D game and rent out like a paintball tournament zone or something, and be running around with your goggles and playing like you're your actual character, moving around in AR
Yeah,
and totally experiencing it. And that way it'd be like stepping into your favorite MMO or something.
yeah,
And that's the kind of thing I eventually want to be able to see happen when AR meets VR.
yeah,
Because AR and VR are separate technologies. A lot of people think of them as two approaches to the same thing, but they're separate technologies that working together can make better than the two parts.
yeah,
And I want to see that eventually come to fruition, because AR allows the real world to peek into the electronic world. And so you can interact with them, like you can look at your friend, but possibly see your friend dressed in their wizarding robes and casting
yeah,
the actual spells, but your friend is still there. And things where in virtual reality, you don't necessarily see your friend, you see your friend's avatar and stuff. But if you blend the two, it can become the best of both worlds, and that just would be amazing in my opinion.
yeah.
Uh, so I'm looking forward to seeing where this kind of stuff goes, and so I'm watching every kind of thing that comes out in this kind of tech tree. Every time a new one gets announced, I'm really kind of paying attention, um, just to see more and more of what we're going to get from. And like you said, when the AR goggles start becoming readily available, if I'm still around, I am probably going to save up and try to get a pair.
A long time ago, I used to play a game that was kind of a really rudimentary version of the same thing. On PlayStation 3, you could use your camera, and they sold a little mount that would hold your camera for a card game, and all the cards had markers on them that the camera could see, so it could tell what card that is.
Mhm.
And so you play a card game with someone online with the PS3 versus PS3, and you put down your cards, and then the camera sees what card that is, and will have a 3D animation that will then play. So like you're looking
Nice.
at the screen of your television to see what monsters you're putting down on the table, kind of come to life.
It'd be like playing, for instance, like Magic the Gathering, but with AR enabled cards that had codes on them.
Yeah, it's like a real life Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Um,
Or that's the other one I was going to say. Yu-Gi-Oh. You could actually be doing the dual world kind of thing where it's like, I summon you, and then
duel.
duel. Yeah, I love Yu-Gi-Oh. It's one of my favorites. I really do love Yu-Gi-Oh. I love the cartoon too.
I watched like 6 episodes of the cartoon, and
Oh, I've watched everything except the very last one.
mm,
The last one I didn't like the animation on it. So this Xenon or whatever it is, Yu-Gi-Oh Xenon or whatever. That one I didn't like the animation, but my favorite was probably Yu-Gi-Oh GX. Although Yu-Gi-Oh Battle City and Yu-Gi-Oh Dual Island were both good too. But GX is Dual Academy, and it's great. Yu-Gi-Oh! Um, SD was good with this with the racers, but it wasn't as much a thing for me as GX was. Because Jaden Yuki with his superhero themed deck was my deck. I love that. His elemental hero deck.
Okay.
Okay, but we're going to keep that in mind, and I'm going to put it on a remind me actually.
Yeah.
Um, as it gets near the end. Let's see, 19 days would bring me to the like second. When's my next payday? Calendar real quick. Um, so 30th Saturday. So third is a Tuesday. It'll be right before I get paid again. If I've still got $30 in the bank account at the time it's running out, I might go ahead and get the starter one just to have it ready. Um, we're going to go on to your next topic, and while you do that, I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick.
Okay.
So,
Well, sure. I was talking a little bit. This is kind of a follow up after the Kingdom Hearts 4 thing, because back in 2021 there was a major NVIDIA GeForce Now leak that had like a list of a whole ton of games that may or may not have been in development, and a lot of people took it with a big grain of salt. But in the last year or so, since the leak came out, a lot of them have come out to be true. Um, we've got quite a few games that was leaked in that list that have come out to actually be released, like the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves edition, um, the God of War coming to PC, the what else was there? There was sorry, I've got this list that gets a little bit mixed up. Avowed on PC, the or well, a game there was a on the list was an untitled The Initiative game, which people thought was going to be Perfect Dark, and then that got announced. Then Contraband, which was then announced. Chrono Cross Remaster, which has since been announced. Final Fantasy VII Remake, which has been announced. For PC. Um, Street Fighter 6, which has been announced. The remasters of GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. The Crisis 4 has been announced. Earth Defense Force 6. Um, so yeah, that's the idea is Death Stranding Director's Cut for PC. So there's been a lot of these games that were in this leak that have since come true. The most shocking one was Kingdom Hearts 4, evidently. And because of this, people are now taking a closer look at the list to see what else has been listed. Some of the other things that have been listed that have not yet been announced, but are now looking, very likely, are things like Mortal Kombat 12, Tekken 8, um, remasters for Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 HD, Injustice 3, Gods Will Fall, which is one I'm really. I mean, these are ones that are sticking out my mind because they're franchises that I adore and want to see more of. Hitman Pro, uh, Goat Simulator 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 Remaster, Metro Next, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order on PC, which is currently a Switch exclusive. Um, let's see here. An anniversary edition of Tomb Raider. Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster. Um, oh, a Final Fantasy IX remake, like a full remake of Final Fantasy IX, which that would be fantastic. I think anyway. Halo 5 Guardians to PC. Well, that one's not marked whether it's confirmed or not. That's kind of weird. Gears of War 6. Um, some of them that kind of surprised me are like Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Um, so yeah, kind of my point is I don't know if Doc's back yet. Helldivers 2, GT7 for PC, Returnal for PC, Demon Souls, the PS5, the remake for PC, Ghost of Tsushima on PC. These other ones are not announced, not confirmed, but I mean they're looking more and more likely, considering how the leak has been turning out. How many of these games have been announced? You know, I think there's one that I missed earlier that was announced that I didn't mention, which was what was that? The Chrono Cross remaster? I'm not sure. One that has not been announced. Resident Evil 4 remake, like a full remake for Resident Evil 4, which the remakes for Resident Evil games have been selling extremely well. Um, then Dragon's Dogma 2, Monster Hunter 6, a Bioshock, a new Bioshock game. Actually, two new Bioshock. Well, one of them is a Bioshock remaster, and then another one's a new Bioshock game. The heck is Human Fall Flat? I don't know, but apparently, according to this, it may be getting a sequel before long. Shin Megami Tensei 5, potentially for PC. Batman Arkham Knight RTX remaster for PC. Half-Life 2 remaster for PC. Um, just a whole ton of these. Trying to think what else. Okay, here's one that really kind of feels like a shot in the dark. Um, is Mario and Rabbids on PC. Like that's one I would not expect to be on PC. But shoot, who knows? I mean, it's possible that they just had it on RTX for testing purposes, but not for actual, release. Who knows? It could also be something that they were considering and have since canceled. There's a lot of you know things about this list that could say that it doesn't work out. If you want to try to find the list yourself, go ahead and take a look at just look up the NVIDIA game leak or NVIDIA GeForce Now database leaks, things like that. I will find you this list. There's this useful Reddit page I found that has someone that broke it down by publisher, and they've put check marks next to ones that have been announced and X's on ones that have not been announced. With the exception of Halo 5 Guardians, for some reason they didn't specify on there. Um, one of these that was announced is EA having some untitled Respawn game, and it's been recently announced that they have 3 Star Wars games in the works. Talos Principle 2, Judgment, which might be difficult. According to here, there's legal disputes with Sega and the actor agency. So it's hard to say. One of them was Tomb Raider being developed on Unreal Engine 5. That's recently been announced. That was just recently announced. A week ago? Maybe, I think a few days ago. I don't even think it was a whole week ago that Tomb Raider 4 was announced, being developed by Square Enix. Or, published by Square Enix, developed by Crystal Dynamics using Unreal Engine 5. So that's another one on this leak that was just recently announced. One of the leaks say Final Fantasy 16 coming to PC at a later time, sometime after the PS5 version. Yeah, I don't know what else to add to this. I don't want to go through quite the whole list. Doc, have you gotten back yet?
No.
Hello? I guess that sounds like he's not returned yet. So I'm not sure what else to say for this specific subject. This is not like intended to be a long one, and it's kind of odd to be on here on my own, right? My personal favorites I am looking forward to. I mean, I'm not much of a PC gamer, so that side doesn't impact me a whole heck of a lot. Other than for games that haven't been announced, if they're going to be on PC, they're also going to be on consoles. So like the ones I'm looking forward to the most are Final Fantasy IX remake. I love Final Fantasy IX. It's been years since I touched it, but I liked it a lot. And then it'd be cool to see a remaster for Final Fantasy Tactics. Um, I'm excited about the Tomb Raider announcement. Let's see, Bioshock, new Bioshock games sounds great. I was expecting a Tekken 8. Um, I was not concerned about a Tekken 8 not happening. So it's good to see, that's in the list, but not a surprise at all to me. Crisis 4, when it was announced not too long ago, I was pretty shocked by about Crisis 4. I thought that franchise ended years ago. Um, what else was there? Oh yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 remasters. Being able to play those on uh, more upres. I'd like to play those in 4K. Injustice 3 getting this title, Gods Will Fall. Oof. NetherRealm Studios is my favorite fighting game developer. So between their Injustice and Mortal Kombat's, um, Moss, that one's been announced. Moss was just recently announced, which is a VR game that was recently announced for Steam. Ghost Simulator 2. I am not sure what to expect for Ghost Simulator 2. The first Ghost Simulator was a surprise hit. I mean, I guess when you're a success, you gotta follow it up, right? Oh, here's what I missed. Ultra Street Fighter 2, The Final Challengers. Switch exclusive. That, should I be surprised about another remaster or update or whatever for Street Fighter 2? Probably not. I don't know why I somehow still do though. They just keep on putting it out more. I wonder what the next one's gonna be. What's beyond Ultra and Final, right? Well, okay. So I don't really have much more to say on this specific subject. So maybe I'll just kind of fill in a little bit about what I've been up to in the last few days. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Saw that in theaters the other day. Um, if you liked the first Sonic the wow, if you like the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie and you're a fan of Sonic in general, you have to watch the sequel. I think the second Sonic movie is better than the first Sonic movie. Um, it's hilarious. It does a lot of cool stuff that references the games, like the first game did, but with more characters. Um, there was this one little part that was like, I don't know, 5 minutes long that had nothing to do with the main plot, had nothing to do with what Sonic was up to. It was like just some side characters doing some side character bullshit, and but I easily kind of signed that off because that scene was hilarious, even though it had nothing to do with the main plot of the movie. Um, so yeah, it's just overall it's more of what you wanted from the first movie. Um, and then I saw the Batman a second time. Which, speaking of the Batman, they just announced its HBO Max release. I saw that earlier, and I don't remember what its date was. Let me take a look real quick. I think it was later this much. Later this month. HBO Max. When is Batman on HBO Max? April 18th. So in 6 days. In 6 days, you'll be able to watch the Batman. Um, so Monday, this upcoming Monday. Not a long wait at all. And I highly recommend it. It was a really good solo Batman movie. I also saw Morbius, which I think Doc might want to talk about that one a little bit. Um, Morbius in the box office is doing terrible. Its box office is its opening weekend it did, I think it was 84 million, and then its second weekend had a 74% drop, which is the record now for the worst drop from weekend 1 to weekend 2 of any movie based on a Marvel property, which previously was held by Dark Phoenix, and we all know how Dark Phoenix went. So not a good look. Not a good look at all. It's probably not going to be in theaters for much longer, and I don't think the movie was the. I don't want to give away too much about the Morbius movie, but it did feel like a bit of a paint by the numbers vampire origin film in a lot of ways, or super power person origin movie.
I'm back.
So it didn't do much that was super new, I guess.
I am back.
Hey, you're back.
Yeah, I know. It took me a while. I'm sorry. I went in and died. Yeah,
I ran out of steam on the.
I could hear you. I had my headphones on. You just couldn't hear me.
Oh, okay.
I can hear when I'm in there. I just can't talk because the boom mic is in here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got a wired headset, so I'm not able to do that.
Yeah, mine's Bluetooth. So
I thought about doing a wireless headset, but I don't trust myself to be keeping that shit charged in between uses.
I plug it in whenever I'm not using it. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably do something like that.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic because I know you've got to rest your voice for a second now.
Yeah. A little bit.
Okay. My next one's a real quick one. The next product coming out from Wizards of the Coast is Journey Through the Radiant Citadel. It's a bunch of standalone adventures that'll actually bring your characters from level 1 to 14 on the ethereal plane. So, it's light your path through adventures through the mist of the ethereal plains shines the radiant citadel. Travelers from across the multiverse flock to this mysterious bastion to share the traditions, stories, and calls for heroes. At crossroads of wonder and adventure, the radiant citadel is the first step on the path to legend. Where will your journeys take you? Each of the 13 adventures can be run by themselves or dropped in as part of an ongoing campaign. You get to explore this rich and varied collection of adventures in the magical lands, including 13 new standalone adventures spanning levels 1 to 14, each with its own set of maps. Introduces the Radiant Citadel, a new location on the ethereal plane that connects adventures to richly detailed and distinct corners of the D&D multiverse. Each adventure can be dropped into any existing Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting or on a world of your own. It's available for pre-order now. It does come out in June. It is $30, approximately $29.99. I believe that's the digital price. I'm not sure what the physical book is going to cost. But of course, in D&D Beyond, you can get the digital book. That's primarily what I buy most of my supplements on now. D&D Beyond being, of course, the Wizards of the Coast proprietary system, so that if they ever get a virtual tabletop, it'll be on here. But right now, they're not working on a proprietary virtual tabletop. So they're working in conjunction mainly with Fantasy Grounds and Roll20. So that was originally in the plans, but I think that got scrapped. And that's really all I had for that particular things. So let me touch on a couple of things that Lurch talked about while he's resting his voice. Morbius. I haven't put a banner up for anything, but we were going to talk a little bit about Morbius this week. Like you said, it's not doing great in the box office, and because it's one of those titles that not a lot of non-heavy comic book fans know the character of Morbius, so it's not really going to advertise itself. Spider-Man could have been a Spider-Man No Way Home could have been a terrible movie. I mean, it could have been an absolute horror of a movie and still would have opened to a good weekend because nobody would have known it yet. And just the brand recognition alone would have put people in the seats. They might have been disappointed afterwards, but it would have put people in the seats.
Yeah.
Morbius, they were not disappointed.
They would have showed up, but they would.
Yeah. Morbius, on the other hand, has very, very little brand recognition to put you in the seats. The thing that's going to get you to go to Morbius is the fact that Matt Smith is in it, or Jared Leto's in it, or you might have heard a vague rumor that he was related to Spider-Man somehow. And that's the...
Curiously, Jared Leto being in it was a detriment. There was a lot of people out there, according to Twitter, that were boycotting the movie because Jared Leto was in it.
Yeah. But that's up and down with any celebrity. So
Yeah.
as many people that don't go because of it will go because of the boycott, just to fight the boycott. So you know that it tends to end up evening out, um, depending on why they're boycotting, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I think a lot of it had to do with them being mad about his Joker from the Suicide Squad movie, but I have to say, just a little aside, that Jared Leto sounds like he was being a pain in the ass with this movie, like he was with the Suicide Squad movie, because he wanted to remain in character at all times, and like his character, uses those crutches and can barely use his legs, and he would keep walking like that when they weren't filming, and would even insist on walking to the bathroom like that,
well,
not using refusing to let people wheel him in a wheelchair or anything. He would walk with those crutches, and so it'd take him 45 minutes to get back and forth from the restroom because of those crutches, just even for a quick pee break.
he's method acting is what he's doing, and I mean that can end up being a really really good for a production. Like Heath Ledger was a method actor, and when he played the Joker, his method acting really brought the Joker out. I mean,
Yeah,
nobody's going to argue against the fact that Heath Ledger was probably the best version of the Joker that's ever hit film. But
I know someone that would argue that vehemently, but that's a whole other can of worms.
but for
I
the
like
most part,
Joker a lot. I think
but
most
yeah,
people would agree with you.
yeah, and when it really comes down to it, method acting's got its place. It's just you also have to balance it with the convenience of the fact you only have so much time to film. You only have certain lighting and sets and people and stuff for certain time periods. So sometimes you gotta have to rush to the bathroom and come right back. You're not going to take 45 minutes to hobble to the bathroom.
Yeah,
Uh,
this movie was on a tight financial budget as it was.
right.
This whole movie was made on $75 million. But
Which for a Marvel movie is not a lot.
the cheapest MCU movie was Ant-Man at 130 million.
Right.
Ant-Man, and this one was $75 million.
Yeah, I know. So this one's like
Um,
about almost just a little bit over half of that.
and
Yeah.
every minute that every minute of every hour that you've got cast and crew on set is
Costs
costing
money.
money.
Yeah, because you have Screen Actors
People on
Guild.
set for one scene, training for one
Yeah,
scene.
and they have to be paid minimum Screen Actors Guild rate just
Yeah,
to be there. So, you know, the hourly Screen Actors Guild rate is not small. Uh Yeah, and that's the thing. And the movie, like I said, doesn't have the recognition that like Spider-Man does, or that even Venom does, because at least Venom was introduced in a previous Spider-Man movie. You know, it may not have been a great version of Venom, but he was introduced, so people had that connection. Morbius hasn't been introduced in any live action Spider-Man movie, and he's barely showed up in the cartoons.
If
Two or three episodes at most.
if they had found a way to introduce Morbius somewhere in another movie
It would have helped.
first, I think it would have helped.
They should have. I still maintain what I said last week. They should have put Morbius in a post-credit scene for either Venom or Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Just even a real quick post-credit scene would have been enough to pique people's interests,
yeah,
and that would have immensely saved opening weekend's box office, because the word of mouth is not getting people into the theaters, because it's really just a generic kind of vampire anti-hero origin story. You almost could put any other vampire kind of anti-hero in there and nobody would blink.
yeah.
Um,
So I had fun with the movie,
it was cute.
but it's not Marvel hero level of a movie.
No, it's not. It's not Marvel. It's not even Sony cinematic level. And like we were discussing before we went live, the after credit scenes were just confusing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into details and tell you what they are. So if you end up watching them and they make a buck, hey. But
So I don't want to give anything away with that, but yeah, definitely it was
it's confusing,
confusing.
not enlightening, and not intriguing. Confusing, just confusing.
Yeah, yeah. When you're watching them, the first one didn't bug me so much. It still doesn't make much sense. But then the second one just goes even worse. I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, they just compounded it. Yeah, and so uh, regardless, like I said before we went live to you privately, I think that for a Morbius 2 to even have a chance, they're going to have him do a crossover with either Venom or Spider-Man or some other bigger property.
Yeah.
Some other bigger property just to build interest. Because
This
otherwise,
movie, this movie was fun, but it was a kind of a by the numbers superhero origin story.
yeah,
Um,
it's not enough to
of a
spawn a sequel.
yeah, of a hero that has. I mean, the thing that makes it a little different is because of his vampirism. He does, kills some people
Right.
because of his vampirism, and that's about the one unique angle it has compared to a normal and just a by the numbers origin
Here,
story.
that's what makes him an anti-hero instead of a fully a hero,
Yeah,
because he does have that dark element.
and it wasn't as good or as interesting as the Venom movies were.
No, by far not.
And
The Venom movies were fantastic.
so it's
Yeah,
unfortunate. I had higher hopes for it.
I would like to
But
see a sequel to
it's
it, not
it's
because
easy. It's easier for me to not hold too much against it since I have my movie pass and it doesn't cost me per ticket to go see movies.
right.
Um, but if I paid $14 for an IMAX screening, I might have been a little annoyed.
Yeah. Oh, if I'd have paid for an IMAX screening of it, I know I'd have been annoyed. Um,
I think I paid like $10 for Allie's ticket, and my ticket was free. So, for the two of us to be able to see it, it was a worthwhile trip for the two of us. Allie liked it a lot more than I did.
and it was an underutilization of one of the actors too. The actor that played his mentor at the beginning, who is of
Oh,
course um, Moriarty in a Game of Shadows and stuff with Sherlock Holmes. He's played some good characters before, and he was underutilized in this movie too. I think the whole underutilization of such a great actor was a shame. Um, yeah, but if you're going to go see it, you want to throw Sony a bone, go ahead and do it. If you want to see it as a sequel, then unless it really unless they just decide to gamble on it, which I don't think is going to be the case. Sometimes they gamble on sequels even when they're not warranted,
I
or
still think the character is interesting enough to have a
it could carry a sequel. And a sequel could potentially be a lot better because they got the origin out of the way. And sometimes that's the clunky part. But for a real sequel to be actionable, they need to have him cross over with either Venom or Spider-Man, or preferably both,
yeah.
in some small way, even if it's just in an after the credit scene.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to mention is all the footage, all the features that we saw in the trailers, referencing Spider-Man, showing imagery of Spider-Man, the Oscorp building, all that footage in the trailers, not in
Gone.
the movie.
Yeah, not there.
There's no wanted poster for Spider-Man or a poster of Spider-Man that says murderer. That doesn't exist. Um, Venom exists. Venom is referenced like in the trailer, but there's no Oscorp building anywhere. Um, it was bizarre how they kept teasing it having a connection to Spider-Man, and then in the actual movie,
Not showing any of the connection.
it's not there. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
at least they could have shown Jay Jonah on the TV or something. Jay Jonah on the TV would have added immensely to the link.
yeah, and we also know though that with Venom being in this world, and Venom, according to Eddie Brock, there is no Spider-Man or any kind of superheroes from his world. Um,
Yeah, according to the end of credit scenes and stuff that
yeah, from
Venom was in.
what movie was that?
No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah, and he's talking about how there's no heroes in their world. Sorry
Yeah,
if
he was
anyone hasn't
talking to the
seen
bartender.
No Way Home yet, but
He was talking to the bartender, and it was like, yeah,
yeah. So like he doesn't know what a Spider-Man is, and so I'm just more confused. I walked away from Morbius more confused than I was when I
yeah,
walked into Morbius.
yeah, and that's not. It's not the kind of confusion that's going to breed the real desire to go wanting to see a sequel.
It's not intrigued. It's confused.
Yes, there's confused with the desire to know more. That's intrigued. Then there's confused with, like, why did I bother doing this? And this is closer to that second one.
What
Uh,
is going on
but
around
anyway,
here?
we're going to move ahead now. I mean, Lurch didn't get a complete rest on his voice, but that's okay. Um, and this is a Sony subject.
Back to
Sony
Sony
goes
news.
big.
Sony made the Morbius movie, so it's funny.
Yep.
All right, so Sony invested $1 billion in Epic Games. Uh, they also got a fundraising, or they also got funds from Lego. I think it was $2 billion from Lego. To help Epic Games work on I guess, what they're building for a metaverse. So they said here from Epic CEO Tim Sweeney, he says this investment will accelerate our work to build the metaverse and create spaces where players can have fun with friends, can build creative and immersive experiences, and creators can build a community and thrive. So, and then CEO of Sony, Chairman, President, and CEO of Sony, Kenichiro Yoshida says, "We're thrilled to invest in Epic to deepen our relationship in the metaverse field, a space where creators and users share their time. We're also confident that Epic's expertise, including their powerful game engine, combined with Sony's technologies, will accelerate our various efforts, such as the development of new digital fan experiences in sports and our virtual production initiatives. So yeah, they're putting a whole lot of. They're not buying the company, but they're
No, they're
investing
investing in it.
a lot of money into them to help with their development of their metaverse, which is just kind of growing everywhere. And I'm getting a little confused about it, metaverse, because I thought for a bit I was thinking metaverse was trademarked by Facebook. I think that's now the name of a service they provide, but it's being used here as if metaverse is just a description of a
A
type
term.
of service. So I might have to stop and like spend some time to kind of get a better grasp on that. But I think it makes more sense that it is it could be like Band-Aids, like
Yeah.
Band-Aid is a trademark brand, but no matter what kind of Band-Aid brand you buy, you're gonna say, "Get me a Band-Aid."
Or like Jello or
Yeah,
things like that. There's a lot of those that are actual trademark brands, but they're also considered the generic term for something.
what that's called is I think they call it a household term.
Yeah.
That's why years ago Nintendo had a campaign to get people to stop referring to game systems as Nintendos. There's not a system called a Nintendo. There's a Nintendo Entertainment System, but don't call it a Nintendo. If you do that too much, it makes it to where the word Nintendo can be used to mean a game console of any kind, and they wouldn't be able to trademark, control the word anymore.
Right.
Which is a weird way of how laws around terminology can work.
Yeah.
And so they managed to get that. That's why Google says Google search. Don't Google things. Google search things because the action is Googling, but you're using the Google service to do it.
Right.
Because if people say Google it and it becomes legally considered a household phrase, then that means Yahoo can say Google it. You Google it on Yahoo search engine.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
they have to be careful about how popular your brand gets.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes you do.
And I wonder if that's what's happening with Metaverse right now. That Metaverse is, I wonder if Facebook is trying to make it their own thing, but everyone else is like, no, that's just the term for what this does. It's like the internet. You can't trademark internet, can you? So
Right.
that's what I feel like is happening with the term Metaverse right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought that was an interesting announcement, an interesting reveal.
That's a lot of money to drop into another company without buying them outright.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they did in 2020 they dropped 250 million on Epic. So this is the second big investment that they've done with Epic in just the last couple of years.
Yeah. Apparently they felt
No.
they felt that I guess that 250 million was just the promise ring, and now this is the engagement ring. Right?
Yeah, they still ain't got the wedding yet when they buy the company. And I would not put it past them.
I don't think Sony has that kind of money. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think Sony can afford to buy Epic.
I don't know. You never know.
Oh, yeah.
If they came to the right arrangement, you might be surprised. It might not be a buy as much as a merger. So it became Sony Epic or Epic Sony or something.
That's true.
And if they did a merger, it would help them compete with Microsoft. Because Microsoft's got more money than the Christian church. So, okay, we're gonna go to my vault recommendation for the week, and then we'll come to your extra topic that we talked about. I just added it onto the list. For our vault recommendation this week, we have a classic. Speaking of Michael Keaton as the Vulture, one of the first movies a lot of people in the nerdy community know Michael Keaton from. 1988, all the way back, you got to go to Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is probably one of the funniest ghost stories you're ever going to hear, and it's one that got us to recognize Winona Ryder is a Gina Davis movie. It had Alec Baldwin in it back when Alec Baldwin wasn't so full of himself. Uh, yeah, it's changed since then. Uh, but Gina Davis is still her lovable self. And Michael Keaton plays the romping poltergeist himself, Beetlejuice. He's the Mad Hatter of the spiritual world, and I partly brought this up as the new from the vault because Michael Keaton started to show up in more and more nerd movies. You know, because he's Adrian Toomes and in the Spider Verse, he's showing up again as Batman in Marvel. I mean, in Warner Brothers, DC universe. You know, he's getting to be in more stuff, and so. But the other reason I brought it up is because they have confirmed, and it's actually on IMDb now, so it's that confirmed that they are making a Beetlejuice 2. They have not given you a release date, but it is supposed to be coming out in 2025, and it is expected to have Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder in it, as well as David Harbour, who of course played Sheriff Hopper in Stranger Things. So Winona Ryder's kind of sort of love interest in part of the Stranger Things is going to play her husband in the new Beetlejuice. A realist.
This isn't just a secret announcement for season 5 of.
Stranger Things crossover with Beetlejuice. There you go.
Yeah, like Beetlejuice, secretly the villain, the ultimate villain in the Stranger Things world.
That's right. That's right. And then David Arnett is also going to be in as the Jersey Devil, who's going to be, I guess, a long lost son of Beetlejuice when he was human. So the Jersey Devil is going to be coming in there as a character as well, and David Arnett, who of course is the voice of Lego Batman. I'm Will Arnett. I don't know why I said David Arnett. Will Arnett. Will Arnett, the voice, the voice of Lego Batman, and the host of Lego Masters.
Played Job on Arrested Development. That's how I know him from.
Yeah,
Originally.
but he's supposed to play the Jersey Devil, the son of Beetlejuice, but back when Beetlejuice was mortal. But he's now like a demon, like dear old dad, and uh, and I guess the house that they had lived in the first Beetlejuice has exploded, you know, and so they end up moving to the ethereal plane. The whole family does, or something. I'm not sure what all the plot points are, and some of this could change because it doesn't come out to 2025, presumably. And then nowadays, in the climate of these movies, a lot of them are getting pushed back. So just because it says 2025 right now doesn't mean that it won't be 2026 or 2024. Could get pulled forward. But because of the finding out that is the case, I decided that my From the Vault movie would be Beetlejuice. Now, for those who have not seen Beetlejuice, shame on you. It is a great movie.
1988. So if you're like less than 30 years old, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I get why you haven't, but you need to go see it. Now, it is available to watch on Tubi and a few other places too, but I know it's on Tubi. I own a copy, so.
But in the original, Michael
the titular character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Beetlejuice, though, is an amazing movie. For those who don't know what goes on in Beetlejuice, this relatively newlywed couple, which is played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, have this nice big house out in the countryside near a small town. And you never quite know what they do for a living because it doesn't really go into it too much. But the hobby of the husband is to build this scale model of the local town. And so down in his basement, he's got this full scale model of this picture perfect little quaint village town that they live on the outskirts of. In the attic, basement, one of them. Actually, you're right. I think it's the attic. Uh,
Yeah, I think it's the attic.
no, it's the basement initially because her sister peeks through the little basement window when
Okay.
he's working, but it gets moved to the attic when they're dead. Um, yeah. Anyway, this couple is there and they've got this nice big house, and he's working on building the scale model. And the sister, Gina Davis's sister, keeps trying to talk them into selling their house because it's too big because they don't have a family. And they don't want to sell their house. They love their house. And then they go into town to get something he needs for the model, and they die in a car accident on the way home. And they wake up and they don't realize that they're dead initially. Then they find out they're dead when they try to step out of the house and end up on basically a sandworm planet with these giant multi-layer sandworms that reminiscent of a very freaky version of Dune, uh, with like sandworms inside of sandworms and stuff. And they are trying to deal, and then uh, their house gets purchased by these yuppie nouveau riche types from like New York or California, one of the hip areas. And they come in, and one is a real estate developer and salesman, and he wants to like try to buy the whole town and stuff and sell it. But first, they're going there to relax, which is originally the purpose, is to relax for the father. And their daughter is Winona Ryder, who's a goth outcast little goth princess type. She's like all angsty and doesn't get along with her stepmom Delia, and doesn't get along with her dad so much anymore, and just really wants to be alone and be all maudlin and dark. And because she's like maudlin and dark, she's able to see uh, the spirits in the spirit world. Now, the couple are trying to get these new people out of their house because they're just totally not their type of people. And so they end up getting this ghost social worker who tells them that they have to get these Dietzes out of their house because the last name is Dietz. And they have to do it by haunting. And one of the things they saw was an advertisement for Beetlejuice, a spook who would help them haunt their house to get rid of the troublesome living folk that have moved in. And how you summon Beetlejuice is by saying his name 3 times. Say it once, say it twice, third time's a charm. And so they and the social worker advises, no, don't call him. And they end up calling Beetlejuice, but then Beetlejuice is like goes a little overboard and scares the Winona Ryder, and stuff, because their attempt to haunt only gets the Dietzes interested. Especially the mom is like, oh boy, ghosts and everything, great. And So they bring this friend from the from where they're from, Otho, who is this like, well, it seems like he dabbles in everything, but he was an interior decorator when he first is brought in, but turns out that he's been among other things, he's been a paranormal investigator, and the one real estate investor's boss, his wife, is obsessed with the supernatural and says, "Yeah, here's your way to get him over here." She loves ghosts, so now they work on doing this big séance. And they ask, uh, no, first they ask Winona Ryder to produce the ghost, and she says they don't want to. This is okay. That's okay. We don't need her. We've got Otho. And Otho is, of course, the interior designer and everything. And he had found their guidebook to the newly undead, basically an idiot's guide to being undead. And it read like stereo instructions as it is, so it's a terrible book. And, but Otho used it to summon them, and then their decaying bodies were uh, happening in their wedding clothes at the seance. And they use a lot of like Harry Belafonte music in the movie, like Deo, Deo, daylight come on me one go.
I remember that scene. They're like dancing around the table.
Yes,
Like
come Mr. Tallyman, tally me.
demon.
Well, that one is Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin trying to scare them, but it didn't really work. Uh,
Okay.
and then
It's been too long for me since I've seen it to give a summary of anything. I remember I liked it a lot. I've seen it a few times, but it's been too many
oh,
years.
it's a great movie. It's a romp. And
It's like
I mean, I don't want to give away the whole thing. It
it's a comedy movie with horror themes.
and it's one of the first movie. It's not the first by any means, but it's one of the first movies that lets people experience Tim Burton's sense of humor and dark comedy. Um, of course, he did Edward Scissorhands, and he did Nightmare Before Christmas. And he did this. These are the ones back when Tim Burton was really at the top of his game. I mean, these are the ones I consider to be Tim Burton's real masterpieces. And by far, Beetlejuice is one of my all-time favorites of Tim Burton. And it doesn't have what's his name, Johnny Depp in it at all. See, Tim Burton can do a movie without Johnny Depp. It doesn't even have Hillary Bonham Carter in it, and it's still good. Uh,
Well, I think this predates them starting to work together.
yeah, I know it does. It does. It's before. Well, Johnny Depp had worked with him because he was in Edward Scissorhands, but Hillary Bonham Carter had not. Uh, and this is before he married Hillary Bonham Carter. But it is such a wonderful, wild ride of a movie that if you have not seen it, do yourself a favor. Go to Tubi. It's free. Watch it. Yes, you got to deal with a few commercials, but watch. Or rent it on Amazon Prime or Vudu. Or watch it or buy it on Amazon Prime or Vudu. You can get it for $5-6, and it's worth it. It is a great movie. It's one you're going to want in your collection anyway. I'm telling you, after you rent it, you're going to end up buying it anyway, because it's such a great comedy with horror elements and examples of the absolute limits that Michael Keaton can go to be funny. Because this is Michael Keaton at his absolute best. And it's Tim Burton at his best as a director. And it's Alec Baldwin when he was really just a good actor and not just a paycheck. And Gina Davis is always good. I mean, I've not hardly seen her in anything where she wasn't great. Little known fact about Gina Davis, she's also an Olympic level archer. Not everybody knows this, but she has an Olympic level mastery at the bow and arrow.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's surprising what some of these unknown talents of actors and stuff are. Uh, but
Double checking. I do own Beetlejuice on Voodoo.
yep.
So
So
I'm watching this
yeah,
in the week.
that's part of what the vault is about, is inspiring people to watch these movies, whether you've seen it before and it's just been a while, or you've never seen it before because like you're in the younger generation, you just didn't, or it just missed you on the radar somehow, even if you're from the older generation of nerds. But for nerds especially, this is a great movie to do. It's nonstop laughter pretty much from start to finish. um,
It's owned by Warner Brothers.
it is a Warner Brothers property.
Is it on HBO Max?
It might be on HBO Max. I didn't check for it on HBO Max, but I know it's in a couple of different places. In fact, I think it is on HBO Max because I remember it being advertised a couple of weeks ago. Fairly certain. Let me check my HBO Max queue real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to log into my HBO Max at the moment for whatever reason.
It only takes me a second
It's on the
usually.
login screen.
Yeah, mine went right in. And I just want to go to Beetlejuice is available.
Nice.
It is available on HBO Max. So if you want to watch it without commercials, head over to HBO Max and watch it because it is a Warner Brother property. And you'll be glad you did. That's what the Vault is here for. Another movie I watched this week that I'm not going to actually do as my Vault pick, but as another recommendation that's on Tubi is called Idiocracy. It's from
Oh, that's so good.
2006, 2008, and it involves Luke Wilson and,
Vault's a good movie.
yeah, oh, it is.
Good.
It's hilarious. Owen Wilson's brother, and what it is, and it's so unfortunately true. Uh, it shows out the world. Luke Wilson and this other guy, I can't remember the actress's name who plays her, get frozen as a military experiment because they were saying that a large portion of their military forces get underutilized because they're not at war when they're at their peak performance ages and stuff. So what they're going to do is they're going to freeze them and then thaw them out when they need them for war. You know, and as an experiment, they take the most average soldier they have, which is Luke Wilson. He doesn't do, he was happy doing a sit around do nothing job. He keeps getting so lead, follow, get out of the way, and he keeps getting out of the way kind of guy. Definitely not the one that's going to inspire be all that you can be. And they take him and they freeze him, and they didn't have a female representative to test it, so they get a prostitute. So
Yeah.
they bring a prostitute and Luke Wilson, and each one gets frozen, and they're supposed to be frozen for a year. But
The
what
prostitute
happens?
is played by Maya Rudolph.
Maya Rudolph, yeah, she's hilarious, and 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 they're supposed to be frozen for a year. They end up frozen for 500 years. And the world that they wake up to is so dumbed down because all the smart people in our generation were holding off on having kids till it was fiscally and intellectually responsible, while all the more ignorant people were having them by droves. So everybody was getting dumbed down by process of natural selection, since only the stupid people and the rednecks and the poor were the only ones having kids. Everybody was getting dumber and dumber and dumber. So in the 500 years in the future, it's an idiocracy. Everybody's an idiot. And I mean, the English language has devolved into like this weird combination of street slang and redneck and valley girl. And when Luke Wilson talks, he sounds pretentious, is all.
Yeah, and so what's great is like he goes in as a completely perfectly average guy, tested to be like exactly average,
If nothing
and
else, he's actually a little below average.
uh, when he comes out, he goes into a prison assigned IQ test where they discover he is the smartest
Smartest
man.
man on the planet. Yes.
Yeah.
And
So imagine how dumb the average person you think is, and then say that's now the smartest person in the world.
and I'm going to, like I said, I'm not going to go into this movie much more. It is a recommendation, but it's not the feature recommendation this week. But the other line I love from this movie is when they go up to the Carl's Jr.'s booth and you go to order and it says, "Would you like to try super big ass fries?"
Yeah, it's such a crazy world. It's directed and co-written by Mike Judge, who you know from King of the Hill, Beavis and Butthead, The
Mm-hmm.
Office. Not The
Yeah,
Office. Sorry, not The Office. Office Space.
Office Space, right?
Silicon Valley.
All
Everything.
those kind of things.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
Randy Newman.
and it's absolutely hilarious romp. And it almost was my pick. Instead, I went with Beetlejuice. Uh, I went with Beetlejuice, but then I rewatched Idiocracy because I knew Beetlejuice by heart. So I compromised. I said, well, Beetlejuice will be my main focus, but I'm going to rewatch Idiocracy because it's just fun to watch. And I recommend them both to be watched this week. So you kind of got a twofer this week, which is okay. We can do that once in a while. Uh, both of them are going to have you in stitches, and sometimes you just need a good laugh, especially nowadays. This will cure what ails you. It'll make you laugh. But I mean, anyway, we're going to go on to Lurch's surprise fourth topic, and I actually know a little bit about this one because I had mentioned it to Allison a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is something that happened on Friday, and Warner Brothers has been basically Warner Brothers has been purchased by Discovery. They bought it away from AT&T, who AT&T acquired it back in 2016. And when AT&T bought it, they put all of their own people in charge of all the key places of Warner Brothers, right? And between Friday and Monday, all of those people have been let go.
Yeah.
The guy at Discovery, the head of Discovery, is now in charge at the top, and he's already had like all the AT&T people let go that people were saying were the main problems with Warner Brothers for the last few years, and is now replacing them with movie Hollywood veterans, because AT&T people had no the AT&T people had no Hollywood experience. They had no show business experience. They were tech people. They were not the right people you want for this particular job. And it showed. Like, there was one particular woman I was reading about who took over a certain portion of Warner Brothers in the film division, that right after she took over said decided that their movie output would be cut in half per year. They put out half as many movies a year as they normally would. Um, we're kind of running heavy on time, so I'm going to try to keep this short. The key thing to me, I mean, besides just the business of things, there was a lot of people at Warner Brothers that are show business people that are very thrilled that this is happening, because now we're getting show business people back in charge of a show business company instead of AT&T tech people in charge of it. It was the AT&T people that cut the Snyder movie, and made the decisions that they did with this the first Suicide Squad movie that David Ayer originally had written.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it sounds like almost all the worst decisions that Warner Brothers has made in the last 6 years have been connected to the AT&T folks that were in charge. So I'm very thrilled to see this, and I have made a couple posts saying with this new leadership, I must insist that we restore the Snyderverse.
That's definitely something that you're going to get my vote on. The Snyderverse needs to be restored as canon.
Yeah.
Uh,
And oh my gosh, it really got me excited when I was reading this, reading the updates on it last night.
well, and another thing, and the reason I brought this up to Allison about a week or so ago, that you may not be thinking on is this is going to mean that there's a good chance that Discovery Plus and HBO Max are going to get it folded in together.
No, that's been announced that they are.
They are definitely,
Yes. So
because there was talk about it, but they weren't sure.
yeah, well, from what I was reading last night, and of course it's possible that some of this could be inaccurate, but from what I was reading last night, the plan right now is to start off by offering a bundle so that you can have one subscription for both services, and then sometime down the road, when they figure out how, they intend on merging
Folding
them
them
into a
together.
single service. Yeah.
Because I own both of the services because I watch Food Network a lot on Discovery.
Yeah.
And
The idea is the higher ups now in charge intend on bringing them together. It's a matter of figuring out
logistics.
how they'll do it.
Yeah, it's the logistics. But this is going to be great all the way around because I think they can do things like restore the Snyderverse. Um, they can get into a more cooperative and lucrative agreement with the CW network because the people over there at Discovery um, know a little bit more about running a TV station than the HBO uh, side of the Warner Brothers did. And because they've got some of the most successful independent TV networks in the Discovery network, because Discovery's got like the Food Network channel, Travel Channel, Turbo Velocity, Animal Planet, Science Channel, the Oprah Winfrey Channel. You know, all of these
Wow.
True Life channels were under the Discovery Plus moniker. And yes, Warner Brother had some great stuff there with Cartoon Network and TBS, TNT, and True TV and stuff, but a lot of mismanagement has made things fail on those channels too. But if you combine the superstructure from Discovery with the licensing content of Warner Brothers, you know, you might actually get even better and they can get into a more cooperative stance with the CW, which is the one currently producing a lot of the Warner Brothers TV shows. And if you bring that all together, I see nothing but good things because as it was under AT&T, there's always the chance that the CW was going to eventually just get canceled. The
Yeah.
CW verse, because AT&T had a tendency to just kind of mismanage TV a little bit. The CW, luckily, CW has been the main driving factor. Warner Brothers hasn't been doing as much of the management as Berlanti has, and I think that was the saving grace for the CW verse as so far is the fact that Greg Berlanti's been in charge. But I think that Berlanti will have an easier time working with Discovery and their TV arm. And so I'm looking at this being a positive all the way around. So not only will it helpfully bring the Snyderverse into canon, but it should make it to where we've got an even better longevity for the CW verse of shows, which we obviously love on this channel because we spend a lot of time on them every week. We spend a lot of time on them every week.
Yeah, it's true.
It's one of our main focuses, in fact. And speaking of that, that's where we're headed to next.
Good segue, right?
Good segue. Because, okay, and as much as we've spoiled some older movies and stuff, now you really need to know Spoiler alert. From this point forward, spoilers will happen. And this is spoilers on new stuff. We tried not to spoil, like, for instance, the stuff from Morbius or Sonic 2, but this is going to be spoiler stuff. The only CW show we have this week is The Flash, because there was no Superman and Lois, and there was no Naomi, even if we were going to do it. And Naomi is not one we've been doing the last couple of weeks. And we've not been covering Kung Fu. So, the CW verse, Flash, and in this one, we're still dealing with the Black Flame, and we're still dealing with Iris's time sickness. They're determined that kind of Iris is the cause of this, like, temporal anomaly effect that's happening. It's actually coming from her, not just happening to her. We did find that out for sure. They spent most of Iris's part of the episode trying to take the young Meta from before, the little Shadowcat Meta, and try to get her in touch with her mother. And there was a sealed adoption and things of that nature, but they were doing their best to bring her and her mother together. That was the big part of the Iris plot line.
Yeah. A little bit off topic, but still on topic. I was wondering, I was like, where do I felt like I recognized this character vaguely, but not quite, this girl. And so I looked it up real quick, and she is an old school superhero character, created by, I think it was Jerry Spiegel, one of the creators of Superman.
Superman.
Yeah, back in like '61 or something.
Mm.
And our superhero name was Phantom Girl. She's from the distant future.
Oh, she's supposed to be Phantom Girl. Okay.
Yeah, she's Phantom Girl from Legion of Superheroes. And in the comic book origin, she's from another planet. She's an alien
Right.
from another planet, and that's the source of her power. It's a natural trait of her species is to be able to pass through solid objects.
Yeah, so she's not just a DC meta.
Yes. Yeah. So
Right.
they are seemingly completely changing her origin story and the source of her powers in this case. For the Flash.
Yeah, now she's a lot more like Shadowcat from the X-Men.
Yes. Yeah, that too. All the way down to the shorting out electronics, which was not a Phantom Girl ability.
But is definitely a Shadowcat ability, because the first appearance of Nimrod in X-Men, one of the secrets they had for defeating Nimrod was Shadowcat's ability to short circuit him partly.
Yeah. And so they're giving some ability of Shadowcat to Phantom Girl,
Mm-hmm.
ability that she never had, and then changing her origin story to be a human, meta-human, instead of alien, which is
Of course.
interesting considering we are in a universe that has aliens. It's not like aliens don't exist in the CW verse, but I guess if they're going to be introduced by the Flash, then they got to stick to the
The
thing.
metahumans is usually the Flash's thing. Aliens were the ones introduced usually in Supergirl or a little bit in Arrow before it left, and in crossovers. Crossovers, we can have aliens, we can have extra dimensional beings. In the crossovers, in anything's fair game. But otherwise, each show kind of has its own benchmark of what it brings in, and the Flash brings in metahumans.
I think it would have been fine, though. I think it would have been fitting to bring in an alien on the Flash, but that's whatever.
Right. And
They wouldn't be able to find an adoption parent to look for if that was the case, right?
right.
Anyway.
Unless later on they say that her origin, her mom was from the other planet.
That's possible too.
Mm-hmm.
That could be easily retconned.
It could always be revealed later on. Uh, and so, anyway, back to the Flash. We have Frost setting herself up to be bait for the Black Flame. And so she brings their mother into it.
Yeah, did you mention how the Black Flame followed her home and attacked her at her house?
It followed her home and attacked her while she was painting. So she was not in any way depressed. In fact, she was ecstatic with her painting. She was one of the happiest she'd been in a while. And she was so happy with how her painting had come out and everything. And still the Black Flame had attacked, which was weird because before it's always attacked people that were depressed and scared and you know, in mourning kind of. So it wasn't playing along with the normal thing. Now we do find out by the end of the episode that there's some kind of link between the Black Flame and Robbie Raymond, one part of the Firestar Matrix, and Caitlin's ex fiance, which played by Robbie Amnell, Stephen Amnell's real life brother, who played Oliver Queen. Robbie Amnell is a great little underrated actor, and you see him a lot in the Liberty Mutual commercials. But you also saw him in The Tomorrow People and in Upload. He was the main character in Upload, which is that Amazon Prime series I was talking about a few weeks back. And he's going to be coming back, and we'd heard rumors that he was coming back as Robbie Raymond this season of The Flash. Well, at the tail end of the episode, we do get a kind of a flash vision of Robbie Raymond's voice being heard by Caitlin. Ronnie Raymond, not Robbie. Ronnie. Is Ronnie Raymond, Robbie Amnell. I'm sorry. I just, it's so close. Quite close. And Caitlin, of course, at this episode, again in the beginning, Caitlin was still out doing her own thing in another city in her little mini part of her character vacation, while her other character, Frost, was still active. But they bring Caitlin back to help talk Frost out of like basically practically committing suicide by risking herself all the time, because she was acting like she was not valuing her own life. And Caitlin didn't like that, and she didn't want her mother to treat Frost like that either, because her mother in a lot of ways was treating Frost as more of an experiment or an asset than as another daughter, even though she's the other half of Caitlin. For those who have not been keeping up with The Flash, the Frost was literally split from Caitlin in the previous seasons, because she was Caitlin's alter ego for a long period of time, as a multiple personality kind of thing. But then she was pulled out of Caitlin, and became her own separate being. For a little bit, she actually literally transformed into Frost. And so they shared the body, but they transformed back and forth. But then they found a way to split the two. But now they act as sisters, and they're as close as twin sisters in a lot of ways, because they literally are a special kind of Siamese twin. They shared the whole dang body for a while. That was one heck of a separation surgery, let me tell you. It really takes a classic Flash villain that was never a hero and makes her a hero. Because the Frost was never a hero in DC Comics. Frost was always a villain.
Yeah, I was gonna say she was a straight up villain.
Yeah, she was part of the Killer Frost was part of the Cold family. Because there was a whole family of Cold villains that Flash had to fight on numerous occasions. No, these were all ones that had Latin ability, not a cold gun.
Yeah. I just find it funny. There's a cold family,
Right?
and then there's Captain Cold, who has no relation to them.
And then there's Mr. Freeze, is also a DC villain. Also,
That's a Batman villain.
that's a Batman villain, but he's crossed over a couple of times, but mostly he's a Batman villain. Um, but when they've done like the Legion of Supervillains kind of thing, some of the colds have worked together. Uh, but anyway, so Frost was basically making herself a target by trying to focus her cold energy to draw the black flame to her. Because if you remember from the previous episode, we determined that the black flame was really not flame but cold fusion. So it is drawn to her cold, is why it ends up getting drawn to Frost. Well, we also find out from their mother that she actually determined she does have the Latin cold ability that she passed on to her daughter. So she does have a cold element inside her too, even if she never activated as a meta. But it is there, she just doesn't use it really. And so they, by working together, instead of just risking Frost, which is what they would have had to do if they did it by herself, by combining the mom and Frost in order to become a lure for the Black Flame, they're able to lure the Black Flame without putting Frost totally at risk. And it coincidentally also activates mom fully as a meta. So her cold powers come into full fruition during this episode. And I'm blacking out on what happened next. So I'm going to let Philip kind of.
Well, so they failed the first time they tried to lure it in, because it seemed to be sentient enough to know that they were trying to lead into a trap.
Right.
Just keeping its distance, and then old Frosty was sticking her hands up, like, "Hey, come on, don't you want me?" And then was like making all cold shit to attract it to her, and then it attacks her and like knocks her ass across the room and all that jazz.
Don't you want me?
But that's before the mom reveals that she also has Frosty talent,
Mm-hmm.
genes. And so, when they come back to it, and of course Caitlin shows up and is treating Frost and is upset about her putting her life at risk, all that stuff. You covered that. But
Right.
they do end up doing another trap, only this time they use the mom to help as well, thinking with her help they can. It was kind of
Make it twice the lure.
this whole thing, the whole reasoning for this new plan working, the only difference between the old plan and the new plan, the old plan was too dangerous and nearly suicidal. The new plan was become even more alluring to it by having two superpowered Frosties to lure it in. Because if you do that, that'll bring it in so fast that it won't have a chance to, or won't be able
To
to
think and react.
and then they can catch it. Basically, so they can catch it. And I mean, it ends up almost working, but as the thing is being absorbed into the orb thing they're trying to trap it into, the orb is starting to destabilize, and so they're at risk of it failing. And then the mom starts going into cardiac arrest because of the strain of trying to tap into her power for the
Because she's
first
never
time.
used her powers, yeah.
She's never used her powers. She's trying to tap into it to lure in this monster, and the stress of the monster, the fire thing, in there, her face and everything, was too much, and so she started to go into cardiac arrest. But I don't think she quite hit cardiac arrest, but I think Caitlin was watching her monitor. She's like, anymore, and she's gonna go into cardiac arrest. She's barely holding it together, and the mom was trying to insist, no, I can keep going or whatever. But then Frost jumps out of her thing and grabs mom and throws her to the ground away from the monster, which then
Because
lets the monster escape. But presumably it saved the mom's life.
and originally it sounds like Joe, when he talks to Frost, it sounds like Joe's going to be all upset that she let the bad guy get away. But then, Joe says you did the right thing. You protected somebody.
Said at
Yeah, once he got the details, like,
Let her go. You let it go. Well, it was let it it was let it go or let my mom die.
and then as soon as like you okay, you made a,
Facts.
so you're saying you made a judgment call. Well, then I can get behind that, and because Joe, if anything, is practical, and he understands that yes, sometimes you got to go that extra mile to catch the bad guy. But once he heard that her mom's life was at risk, and she made a judgment call, he's not going to fault you for saving somebody's life.
Yeah.
Joe doesn't do that, and it showed that I mean Frost might have not have valued her own life enough to get out of the way, but she valued her mother's life enough to save her mother and stop it, and that shows a lot of maturity on Frost's part.
Yeah.
Um,
After this whole thing, the mom goes and stays the night with the Frost twins, and
and
kind of
it
just
has a
she's
bonding,
like, I'm fine. Like you need a rest for at least the night, so stay here with us. And
and then she has a bonding moment with Frost where she actually admits that she does now think of her as a daughter, and she did admit that before she was more thinking of her as a experiment, but now she thinks of her as a daughter, and
yeah,
they come to
so
that
this whole
family moment, and they want to become closer.
yeah,
Uh, and it's a good thing because it builds on the characters. Because more than any other show in the CW, the Flash is the one that's more about family and those emotional bonds. Um, Stargirl is kind of too, but the Flash is like really a part of that. Uh, is the touchy feely is a big part of Flash,
that's true. Yeah, that touchy feely
but
does.
that's why they say that the Flash is like the heart of the DC universe here. You know, he really is because he brings out the best in people.
And I think you mentioned this earlier. After all this is over, and there's only
Caitlin has
Caitlin is alone. I think. Yeah, it's just Caitlin. It's not
she
Frost.
gets
It's
yeah,
Caitlin.
it's Caitlin, and she has that Ronnie Raymond moment.
And the Blackfire shows up in front of her again and confronts her. But instead of actually burning her, it like stops right before, and then talks to her with Ronnie's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which is the teaser for the next episode,
yeah, yeah,
because we've known for a couple episodes now that Ronnie Raymond was supposed to show up this season. This is telling us it's about to happen.
yeah. And
Uh,
it doesn't look like it's the real Ronnie. It's this ghost thing that is this cold fusion thing. Which, considering what Ronnie was, it's
yeah, being is
possible
that he's part of
it's
the.
actually Ronnie.
I thought about it when it first showed up and they showed it as Black Flame, and then they started talking about it being Cold Fusion. I started then thinking that it might have something to do with the Firestorm Matrix because Ronnie was part of it, and the Firestorm is living fusion. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what he is. He's living force of fusion, and so he's a nuclear man. Uh, and so it only makes sense that something linked to fusion would bring him in.
yeah. But at the same time, we've already seen this thing imitating Chester's father, who died years ago.
Right?
So I'm
It
thinking
could be an imitation of Ronnie too.
it's probably more of imitating Ronnie to try to bring down Caitlyn.
But that could mean another Ronnie comes from an alternate universe to help.
I don't know.
And maybe with their maybe, and we might get a secret cameo that we weren't expecting from Dr. Stein,
Yeah,
because if we end up bringing a Firestorm Matrix in, you got to have two people to make the Firestorm Matrix. It's a power that's so unstable, you have to have two people to control it. And so it would be really interesting to see a return of Martin Stein as a surprise cameo. I'd be excited. Uh, and then bring Ronnie Raymond in and do the original Firestorm Matrix reunited for the first time since Ronnie died.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then okay, so that ties up the Black Fire part of the story involving the Flash. We got to make a quick stop over with Iris real quick because at the end of that story arc with Iris, she does manage to find the mother, the birth mother of
right,
the adopted Phantom Girl, and they get to have their little touching moment. I was worried that it was going to be a case of the mom wants nothing to do with her, but it's like,
right.
oh, I was
Because a lot of times in these closed adoptions, they're sealed by the mother.
yeah, yeah. And so my thinking was, if it was sealed, that sounds like the mother didn't want her to ever find her, but that wasn't really the case. This is a case of the mother was like, I was 16 at the time, and my parents made me give you up. I wanted to keep you, but I just didn't have the means to do it myself, and my blah blah blah. And so, and then after we get this touching moment with her being able to have this moment with her daughter after all these years, uh, Iris has like a pain in her head or whatever, and so they
Eh,
get to touch
oh,
her head,
yes, I forgot. Yeah.
and when she touches Iris, she suddenly turns
Disintegrates
glow green and disintegrates.
into gold sparkles. So she may not be fully disintegrated. She might have been displaced in time or something.
Yeah, yeah, some sort of a time thing. Which she was told, Iris was told at the very beginning of the episode to stay put and don't go anywhere.
Yeah, basically Coast
But
City, which is where she is right now.
the, the still force guy, Dion, was telling her,
Dion.
don't go anywhere, stay in place, don't go talking to people or whatever. Just
But in
don't
the
know quite how bad this is gonna be.
but in the scheme of things, he says, but staying in place, probably anywhere in Coast City is fine. That's enough of in place. And I actually remember this week which city they're in. They're in Coast City.
Yeah.
Last week I couldn't remember it to save my life.
I when they said it, I was when they said it, I was like, oh shit, that's Hal Jordan's hometown.
Yep, Coast City's Hal Jordan. Yeah, they've got a lot of little side little cities in DC. Because unlike Marvel, which used mostly real world cities and stuff, they did do some extravagant new countries, but mostly with real world cities. DC, when it came out, most of their cities they used were amalgamations of other cities
Yeah.
given more generic kind of names. So
Well,
instead of saying like Detroit or Chicago or something like that, they said Gotham City.
yeah.
Instead of saying
However,
New York or Los Angeles, they said
I want to
Metropolis.
add that in the DC world, those cities still do exist. There is
Yeah,
still New York
they
City.
didn't originally though. Originally they didn't. They just added them later.
Yeah, and in the modern comics, basically the explanation they've given is that their planet their Earth is slightly bigger than our Earth, which grants them more space to have
A
more
few
cities.
more cities. Yeah. But Gotham is really, yeah, like for instance, Gotham is supposed to be a combination of Detroit and Chicago and some of the slums of like California slum areas. It's supposed to be the darker underbody cities, and Metropolis is supposed to be New York and Los Angeles and DC and all these great places. It's supposed to be the hubs of high fashion and society and skyscrapers and stuff. And now we in Coast City is supposed to be one of your like San Francisco, Miami, Malibu. That's Coast City, and Central City is like Indianapolis, and they combined a bunch of these different cities in the U.S. into these generic cities, and these were the hometowns of the various superheroes. Batman and Robin. Batman does Gotham City. Robin does Gotham City, and then when he moves and becomes Nightwing, he's in Bloodhaven. both of them made up cities. Yeah. And that's the thing with DC is DC, they went ahead and just made up their cities, which gave them the freedom to create the city however they wanted. They didn't have to worry about it matching any street maps and designs, and they could put any building anywhere they wanted and stuff. Where
Marvel's direction came a lot with Stan Lee because when he was writing, he felt like it felt a little bit more believable, more real if the places were real places, and so a lot of the stories he wrote, like the reason why so many heroes in Marvel are, especially ones that he wrote or worked on or created or whatever, are based in New York, is because he lived in New York at the time he was writing those comics.
and he knew New York. He knew New York.
And so he wanted his heroes to visit real theaters and real businesses and real streets.
Well, and
in his home.
just like the West Coast Avengers came about during that period in his life where he had spent a bunch of time to California. Yeah, he had got.
And then Tony Stark lived in the West Coast.
And then the West Coast Avengers was born, and they started to have other West Coast based superheroes and stuff. It's because Stan Lee and some of his other creators were now in California instead of in New York. And the Marvel offices had moved to California for a while. And that's the thing. He really much brought his real world in. In some ways, he hamstrung himself because he didn't give himself as much. I won't say he didn't have, because they do have the ability, but he didn't give himself the ability as much to redo the landscape of the town, because he wanted to keep things like the Trade Center and the Empire State Building and the Golden Gate Bridge and all these things in existence in his world, where DC didn't have to worry about any of that because they could create anything they wanted. You know, let's put the Superman monument here because there isn't one. And and so that was one of the big defining differences between the two biggest superhero worlds, was that DC happened on an alternative Earth, and well, let me finish what I was saying. DC happened on an alternative Earth, where Marvel happened on a modified Earth. It was slightly different, because DC's Earth was actually bigger, and Marvel's Earth was just our Earth with an alternative history. and that's the main thing, is that all our Earth add in superheroes. And DC was like a tangent Earth with superheroes that was a little bit bigger to accommodate them. Not to mention the universe outside, which, we've got the Green Lantern Corps and all that other stuff, but that's neither here nor there. So, anyway, we spend a lot of time on that. It's actually 10, and we haven't even touched on Moon Knight.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that. You're right.
We haven't even touched on Moon Knight. And you know what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this week's and next week's Moon Knight next week. Normally we would go ahead and just go over, but I got to go to the bathroom again. Some night did not agree with me. And I'm not going to leave the show to Philip just trying to rack his brain for stuff to talk about. We're already in after hours anyway. So we'll go ahead and push to next week.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick mention that the Moon Knight episode was great. I loved it.
Oh, I was rewatching it earlier. It's fantastic.
Oh, goddamn.
They go into so much more detail this week. The people that were lost the previous week are gonna catch up a little bit more of what's going on. But that's enough to be said. Next week we'll go ahead and do it. And the thing is, since we don't have Superman and Lois again next week, we got room as long as we hit into the Moon Knight sooner. So that's what we're going to do for next week. So we'll go ahead and touch on Moon Knight next week with a special double episode focus. In fact, We might even do Moon Knight before we do Flash next week, just to make sure we get it in.
Yeah.
You know, I might even do less as far as my topics. I might not do 3 topics next week. I'll do like 2 topics and then jump right into Moon Knight. Or maybe I won't do a Tales from the Vault. We'll see. We'll see how it falls out. Partly depends on what comes to my attention over the week.
Yeah.
But because that always informs my decisions. If we have a big announcement sometime during the week, we're not going to ignore it just because we had these previous plans. So anyway, from myself, from Lurch, from the people at Eclectic Endeavors, we hope to see you at Game. We hope to see you here next week. You can watch reruns of this show on YouTube. Just look up Gamer Seuss and then go into the Game Time playlist. And all old episodes are there, usually within 1 to 2 days of them airing. And you can catch up, and we'll catch you back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. May all your dice favor you at the table. May your game controllers never run out of juice. And remember, when you go to finish the bad guy in Mortal Kombat, use the fatality. Good night, everybody.